And so, you know what supercharges this unfolding is when we come to the moment where we follow the intuitive knowing of the heart and we're not following an idea, an external idea of what this journey needs to look like, of what this unfolding needs to be. That when we reach a moment where we can be so supported, enlivened, and graced by teachings, lineages, all of the ways that this expression comes, reading in books, watching YouTube videos. The grace is when we come to the moment where we make the unfolding our own, where we realize that the only way to really enter the unfolding of your own heart is to be absolutely in your own heart, right? Not in someone else's journey, not in someone else's interpretation or expression of what this unfolding is, but to use the grace of what inspires you, what enlivens you, and use the grace to bring you to the frequency of your remembrance, your alive knowing, your intuitive knowing. And from here, to realize that the journey belongs to no one else. No one else needs to give you permission. No one else needs to confirm you. That actually the maturing is the moment where you realize this. And in this unfolding, we will all have guides and supports and possibly gurus, but the moment of recognition that your unfolding is your unique unfolding. No one can do it for you. No one can give it to you. That there is such a power that comes when we can both recognize the power of our own unfolding and simultaneously be completely open to receive the grace of the wisdom light and how the wisdom light brings in exactly what we need to inspire us and enliven us and guide us and companion us, and also to trigger us and spin us out and stir us right to the deep bottom of the barrel of our deep unconscious. That all of it is grace. All of it is grace. All of it is equally grace. And so the whole play of the life is our own creation. We are creating it. We're not creating it as someone. We're creating it as consciousness. We're creating exactly what is needed. But we don't ever need to stay within the confines of what anyone else tells us is the way or how to be. That it's actually about coming to the moment of recognition. And in a way, this is a moment of ripeness, of maturity, the recognition that only you know the heart knows. The you that we're speaking of here is the heart that knows, the heart that is wise, the heart that is clear and free. And the more that we come to remember the deep intuitive knowing, there's a natural following of the heart, which is the most profound guidance. We have come offline with this guidance. We have been looking for perfect parents. We've been looking for beings that will tell us what to do, tell us how to be. But as long as we are giving power to that instead of receiving it as inspiration, it's a big difference. To be inspired is essential. It's part of our human life. We need human connection and to be inspired. We need to be enlivened. And so it's to recognize that everything that inspires and enlivens and supports you towards your deepest longing is the most incredible grace. But you're creating that grace out of your readiness. You're creating what you're ready for. And sometimes what we're creating is stress and suffering, because that's what we're ready for, right? We're creating exactly what we need. Now, of course, from the perspective of the mind, that doesn't make sense at all. The mind would say, well, I don't want all that stress and suffering. But the deepest part of you is creating it, because in order to come to a deeper maturity and ripeness and clarity, and when we say clarity here, we mean clear vision, not a mental idea of a perfected being, right? We're speaking about a clear vision, because clear vision recognizes that clarity in the way the mind imagines is not actually necessary. True clear vision is a clear vision that can see that all of life, everything, is important in this unfolding. Everything that inspires us, everything that points us to opening to the presence of being in the fine frequencies and the absolute, and everything that stirs us so that we can meet the deep unconscious and bring the light into the deep, dark realms of our being. Because in order for wholeness to really be whole, everything has to be included. And where it has to be included is in our lived experience, is that we are in being invited to be a living, alive frequency of wholeness, not someone that's whole. That someone dissolves into being a living, alive frequency of wholeness, of living light. And we can speak about, in terms of our human experience, embodying this light, bringing the light into our embodied lived experience. And the way that this happens is by the heart being stretched, wrenched open by the wilds of life, right? Because the heart that is closed is a heart that is not free, and a heart that is somehow longing to be free. And often a heart that is closed, let's say in protection, it's not that the heart's never really closed, but that sense of being closed and protected, what happens is that we can be then more drawn to the absolute and the transcendent, because that feels like a safe place. That feels like, oh, this feels lovely. And then this idea comes, I need to stay here. I need to get away from all the things in life that feel hard and stressful. I need to get away from all kinds of suffering and hardship. I need to come to the stillness, to the silence, right? And of course, we do need to come to the stillness and the silence, but not as a way of getting away. We're really being invited to live a depth of balanced life, integrated life in our human experience, where we recognize the grace of a human experience, a human life, is the possibility of remembering the true nature, remembering the soul light. And we remember that by clearing away the obscurations and the veils, remembering the love that we are. The soul is, in a way, the light at the core of our human life, right? The soul is still individual. The soul is still like the purest blueprint of the human life. the soul is still bound in a certain way, right? The soul is still bound, and it's still bound in the realms of cause and effect and the astral realms. It's still bound in the realms of possibility of reincarnation, this kind of thing. It's bound in these kind of ideas, right? And really, as the soul evolves and is pulled in this impulse, consciousness, it's the same as consciousness that has this impulse to evolve and to keep moving through whatever it needs to evolve. But what that evolution is heading for, what that evolution is really being pulled to remember, is its own divinity, its own purity. It's being pulled to remember the great, glorious, eternal life, that which is before all individuality, right? So as we open to the being and the absolute great glory, we open to the fine frequencies in the transcendent, where we remember the eternal life and the infinite unbounded, and we remember these frequencies in the transcendent, in the absolute of, oh, this is what I actually want to evolve to. I want to evolve to this divinity. So that's why we're so pulled to the transcendent and the absolute, to Brahman, to the bliss and the glory, because we remember this before we became an individual soul, even, right? And yet, within our human lived experience, we have to follow the evolutionary process that is inherent within the human experience, and to clear the samskaras, the karmic storehouse, and free the unconscious. Because until we free the unconscious, the soul cannot get freed, right? So it's like this human experience offers us the possibility of the most incredible, integrated unfolding. And it's all being carried by the wisdom. Gorgeous, eh? Let's just pause for the glory. Let's just pause for the glory of this human life and what is possible. And that we don't even know what is possible, right? That we don't even know. And yet we pause in this moment of glorious revelation, like an illuminated, explosive wow, awe, wonder, that we can feel it, and yet we don't know. We can feel it, but we don't know. And this wild frequency that holds a kind of anticipation, inspiration, aliveness, this frequency that holds awe and wonder. It's this frequency of our longing, that we're longing to remember. We're longing to open to the glory of the divine. We're longing in our consciousness. Consciousness itself has this frequency, this impulse to know itself, to evolve within itself. And in our human experience, that is the evolution of the soul. The soul's evolution, that we are so bound in the sense of the physical and the emotional and the mental. We're so bound in this idea of this is what I am. I am my story, I am my life, I am my emotions, but we're not, right? And we have this capacity within the human experience to open to all of it. And as we open to the fine frequency of presence and the transcendent and the being, we're refining the capacity of the nervous system. So our physical body, our mental body, our emotional body can actually evolve while we are in our lived human experience, into a living of more refined bodies, the subtle body, the bliss body. I have to call this like a Christ body or a Buddha body. It's really a Buddha consciousness or a Christ consciousness, right? And actually what's coming in now very beautifully is the Christ consciousness that's coming in to show us that the whole appearance of the Christ has been to show us the possibility of this human life, and to, in a way, that the Christ even had to go through the same evolutionary process that we're going through, show us the evolutionary process of consciousness that we can go through to reach eternal life, right? And so, oh, lots going on here. Yeah, so how beautiful, right? That really the possibility is for all that we think we are to collapse into the Christ consciousness, the Buddha consciousness, the Buddha body, the bliss body. And that is the possibility of reaching our soul light, is to, within our lived human experience, to be living the Christ consciousness, to be living the soul light on the surface of life. And that's where Yeshua, Jesus, was this incredible example that showed us love, spotless, perfect love, showed us compassion, showed us a wide open heart, showed us the courage that it takes to face what a human life offers us, and in a way showed us that to open to the unconscious is a kind of crucifixion. Oh yes, it is. But it doesn't have to look like what the mind might imagine that it looks like, right? Right? That the salvation is in the heart, that the revelation, the glory, the restoration of dignity is in the heart's knowing, right? So this is what's possible. We're so drawn to the transcendent, to the absolute, to the glory, because that's the truth of who we are. That's the eternal life. That's the unbounded infinite. And the possibility of a human life is that it gets used for the evolution of the soul that brings us then to embody the possibility, to embody the Christ consciousness, to embody the Buddha nature on the surface of life, while knowing the eternal life, and that when the body drops, the soul returns fully to the Godhead, to the Mother, to the Divine Mother, to the pure integral wholeness. That we can live in the knowing of this wholeness, but it doesn't complete itself. It can't complete itself until the body drops, right? We can evolve and evolve, and we can refine and refine. And in a way, that's why the refinement is meeting the deep unconscious and what our assignment is here, and bringing the light to the deep unconscious, illuminating the realms of the unconscious. Because in illuminating the realms of the unconscious, we're illuminating the unconscious, which is the human condition. We're illuminating the unconscious patterning of the collective that is humanity. That humanity as it stands right now is a deep collective unconscious, right? The part of us that is illuminated, is not exactly humanity, the consciousness of humanity. The part of us that is illuminated is the part of us that is resonating at a much finer frequency. But in a way, our human assignment and the realm of humanity is a realm of evolution. And this is why Jesus, the character of Jesus, and many other avatars and incredible Siddha lights have appeared to guide us and shine the light to show us what is possible in the soul evolution in the human life. And that is why we're also right now being invited to recognize that we're not supposed to see ourselves as separate. We're not supposed to see these beings as better than us, higher than us. That these beings, when they come alive in our hearts, right? Let's use Jesus, let's use Yeshua as an example. When Jesus comes alive in your heart, or let's say Ramana or Ananda Mayima, when a being like this comes alive in your heart, or even a being that's living, let's use Amma, we're pulling suggestions from the field of beings that have inspired us all. When these kind of beings come into our field, they're not really coming in as a person. They're not a person, right? We can also bring the sense of guru into this, right? That when these beings come in, they're coming in as a frequency of our own bliss body, a frequency of our own celestial consciousness, let's say. They're coming in to show us our own divine frequencies. And if we hold a sense of separation, like you're over here, if we create a projection, like I bow to you, I'll never be you, I'll never ever be you, we're missing the whole point that these celestial frequencies are offering us. We're missing the point of what true guru offers us. That true guru is actually inviting us to recognize the light within, the heart that knows, the Satguru, that we're actually being invited to recognize our own divinity and to meet in those celestial fine frequencies. In a way, we are being invited to cast away all of the ways that we want to project divinity onto someone else or something else, a deity, and actually really start resonating at our own frequency of divinity. Now, when we say that, that divinity is not personal, of course. Resonating at our own divinity is, in a way, what we're speaking of at the very beginning here, this maturity to accept our own power, our own divinity, and our own unfolding, not as a personal achievement, because if we try to accept it as a personal achievement, we will crash land very, very quickly. Very, very quickly, we will crash land. But once we really recognize that this is a whole divine operation, there's nothing personal about it, but that when we recognize, like Jesus in the heart, Ramana in the heart, Anandamayi in the heart, Amma in the heart, when we feel a frequency, a resonance, where we're being invited to recognize that where that aliveness is your knowing, is your divinity. That's your divinity, that's your connection. And the reason that any divine being is coming in, whether living or embodied or not, whenever these kind of frequencies are coming in, they're coming in as a sign of the readiness. And then in a way, the initiation, the testing is, will you will you hold a sense of separation and division, or will you allow the falling away of all of the veils to recognize the oneness with these beings, that you can look upon Jesus and say, I am one with Jesus. I am one with Ramana. I am the same. That you can find the place that starts to recognize. And in some ways, there could be this false humility that says, who am I? How dare I? But that's protection. That's the false humility. That true humility is actually the recognition of your divinity, because that the humility to recognize your divinity can only happen when you're not divided and pretending to be someone that is not worthy and not good enough, right? That's not humility. That's false humility. It's protection, and it's innocent, and it's beautiful. And yet, this whole unfolding is inviting us to come to a humility that allows us to shine, that every being that has walked this earth as a being of light hasn't walked this earth as a being of light to be exalted and put on a pedestal, has walked this earth to show us the way. To be that, to live that, to embody that, not to hold some kind of twisted idea that religion has created, that we're sinners and that we will never ever reach that high goal. Every high being has guided us to know the oneness, and that is why before Christianity is Christ consciousness, before Buddhism is Buddha nature, right? Before Hinduism is Shiva, is Shakti, is the Adi Parashakti, right? Is that it's all before the interpretations. So the lineages, the teachings, the systems, great glory that they have created to guide us. But at some point in this unfolding, when there's a readiness, the readiness is inviting us into actually the heart of the wisdom light, the heart of Jesus, of Yeshua, the heart of Ramana, the heart of Ramakrishna, the heart of the glory of God, of our own divinity. If you really examine the sharing of the original sharings of these kind of great beings, you will see nothing that tells you to be a disciple. Nothing will tell you to be a disciple. Everything is inviting the disappearance of the veils and the remembrance in the heart of what we are. And that life is the way that we are humbled. And how far can we go in this human life? What is possible? That when we really open, what is this heart longing for? How far can we go? Why do so few live this truth? Why does it seem so rare? What are the secrets that these great beings have known, that they are imparting to us, right? And can we open to the wisdom light and be guided into the light and the absolute reality? And can we also be guided by that wisdom light into the depths of the unconscious so that we can illuminate and bless and free all of the places that are holding the perspective of separation, the great misunderstanding, where there is a holding of division and a living from that frequency of fear that constantly is dividing. That in a way, the human life is the most amazing assignment that is inviting us to live undivided, to live the impersonal, to live as wholeness, to live out the fulfillment of the evolution of the soul, so that when the moment comes for the body to drop, and by whatever means, all that is left in our final breath is the frequency of love, and that the costume drops and the soul is released, has crossed the ocean of samsara and is released into the eternal life, is released into the remembrance of the glory. That we can in the human life live this knowing, and yet there's so much that we cannot know, because just having this sense of the human life is that itself is the symbol of what we cannot know. And so this maturing is this readiness to recognize the intuition of the heart, and that actually every great being that truly holds the principle of illumination, that truly holds the Guru light, does not want to hold anyone as a disciple, but is truly inviting the absolute merging in the light into the Satguru, where there's a disappearance, a complete disappearance into the light, into the knowing, right? I've shared with you before this tale of the monk that keeps coming to the teacher with these ideas of thinking I think I've reached the enlightenment. And the teacher sends that monk away, and the monk has to sit again and keeps coming with these, wanting this permission, like, I think I've achieved it. I think, is this it? And of course the teacher gives guidance and joins in the illumination, but sends the monk away. And at some point, that being doesn't return to the teacher, because that knowing in the heart doesn't need permission from anyone. That knowing in the heart is the glory, the dawning of the glory in the heart. And now what I'm going to share with you right now is that in the field, what I can recognize, what I can feel is a little bit of ego coming in and wanting to be that one, right? Be careful of that. Be so careful of that. Because where that ego comes in, that wants to be like, oh, I can confirm this in myself. That's not true humility. Let the play itself out. Let it complete itself. And let the knowing come in the silence. Don't try to push yourself to that moment. Don't try to imagine that moment, right? Because it has to be pure. And that ego smoke that just wafted in is it will crash land. It will crash land, and it will end up with a face in the mud, right? That the knowing is in the heart, and the knowing is this recognition that you have an autonomy for your unfolding. You have an autonomy. The heart knows what is true. And it's so important to enter this more mature phase with such utter discernment. And in this, it is about embodying the presence of being, embodying the light, embodying what has been recognized, and using the frequency as the principle of illumination that can receive all of life as grace, that stops resisting life, that can really receive the process of allowing the deep unconscious to be able to surface. And there can be so much that is hidden by protections that cannot be seen. And so this willingness to constantly invite, show me what I cannot see. I am so willing and ready to meet it all. Show me the ways that protection still remains. Show me what I am ready to see. Bring into the light of this illuminated presence of your knowing, that we may look upon together, we may look upon and illuminate whatever is here to be seen. This surrender, this deep one-pointed devotion, this readiness to see where we are blind and to not imagine for 1 second that we have completed anything and that we have arrived anywhere. Even if we have plateaued for a while. The unfolding continues. It continues to refine in subtler and subtler ways. And the glory is that it becomes more inspired, more joyful, more creative, more beautiful, more profound, because there's such a willingness to open to the subtle threads and refine the subtle threads, and really, in a way, a greater and greater willingness to see it all. To let go of the addiction to clarity, to let go to the idea of arriving somewhere, to let go of the idea of being the one that's achieved something, and to remain in constant suspension. That we could even say that the frequency of wholeness is a frequency of suspension. It's like a frequency of golden suspension, and that we just join in this suspension of the unfathomable, unknowable, always hovering, always open, always in devotion, always in surrender, and That's the frequency that keeps wholeness whole, is its absolute willingness to not rest in a concrete way, to be this frequency of alive, like crystalline suspension that can produce every color imaginable, is so bright, and that we're living in this light of suspension. To live in the heart is to live in the heart, live in the heart light of this suspension, spiraling and spinning within itself. And the flow is the flow that dances as this pure devotion, this pure surrender. Mm. So this is the frequency of the wholeness, of the eternal, of the glory. And that in our lived experience, we can open to multi-dimensional remembrance of this. We can open of remembrance of the fine frequency in the wide open transcendent field, the recognition of the eternal, the pure. We can open in the human life, the lived experience, to the sense of the longing and that pull to know and to really open. And we can open in our knowing of the presence of being to the fine flows of intelligence that are carrying the process of refinement. On the surface of life, it looks more like a longing and purification. In the subtle body, in the light body, it's more of like flows of patterns of intelligence and consciousness that flow as discordance and flow as purity, and that are dancing to restore the frequency of remembrance. And then we can have these very wide, ecstatic openings to the fine frequency, to the light, that feels like, wow. And then this light, the frequency of light that we open to, then fuels the refinement process in the subtle body. And then we carry it, we embody it in our lived experience and bring it to the surface of life and live it on the surface of life. And our human experience is being invited to be a lived multidimensional experience where the soul expression is like a fine expression, where the mental body and the emotional body actually collapses into soul light, right? That we actually collapse eventually the sense of the personal mind, and we collapse the emotional body as a wounded body, and we collapse the sense of the story, my story, into the impersonal flow of grace, like in a way, like the universal mind. So there's still an operation of mind, but it's a flow of intelligence and inspiration and creativity. And this can all be embodied in our lived experience. And of course, what is also trying to happen is that the physicality is also trying to refine, but it takes a certain depth, and the collective consciousness is still in the evolutionary process to be able to allow the physical body to really refine. But it's happening. So the finer frequencies that we are embodying allow rejuvenation of the physicality. And the way that that rejuvenation comes through are things like that we refine what we eat. We eat way less, and we eat more aligned with nature, so that the digestive system can refine, because so much of a burden of the human lived experience is the burden of the congested digestive system. It's what creates the majority of disease and stops us moving into more refined layers of what is possible in a human life, is because the overburdened digestive system and the overburdened nervous system with stress stops us refining to be able to open to what is possible, actually is possible in a human life and will be possible. And we're in the evolutionary process of that. And so the way that it presents to us is by the wisdom that shows us how to live sattvic, how to eat less, not eat processed foods. Processed foods are dense frequencies of consciousness. So to free ourselves from what kind of burdens and toxifies our system, so that our system can be lighter and freer and nourished by light, by fine frequencies. That means that we're not just, our life isn't focused upon the burden of like, what shall we eat now? How much shall we eat? Let's go out for dinner. Let's enjoy lots of rich things, right? Because that's burdening. And what naturally happens as we open is that we're naturally guided, and it becomes just all that's wanted. All that's wanted is to be nourished in the most fine and gentle and light ways on every level. And the digestive system and food is such a big one that burdens humanity, right? The fact that probably 95% of what is in a huge supermarket isn't actually even food, has no nourishment at all. It's part of the power imbalance. It could even be higher than 95%, if we dare risk saying that. But it's not even food. It's got absolutely no nourishment. Most beings that are checking out through a supermarket checkout probably have, maybe 1 or 2% of nourishment in their carts stacked high. The majority of it is just holding the dense frequency, and keeping the humanity trapped. It's part of the great imbalance. And there's so many ways that great power imbalance. So we naturally get pulled to that we want to eat seasonally and lightly, and just not engage in that whole system that holds humanity so deeply bound, right? So the pull for the system to lighten up and to become lighter and freer, to realize, part of that is realizing there's nothing wrong with you. So you don't need to keep comforting yourself and you don't need to keep trying to treat yourself and keep stacking in all of these things that are just holding you down. Nothing wrong with you, nothing wrong with you. And when we really start living at a frequency of, oh, there's only God, there's nothing else, then it's like the whole system can start to rejuvenate. Now, because we are part of the collective, we can keep untangling and untangling, but a very small percentage will remain entangled as long as we have a human body. So we do what we can. We receive the grace as deeply as we can. There's ways that we're within the human experience, we can be so entrenched. And again, it's not about making certain foods wrong and certain foods right. It's about frequency. It's all about the frequency. And it's about the frequency that we're living at, preparing foods at a certain frequency, following the deep intuition. It's not only about eating plants and raw food, most definitely not. It's about actually really nourishing the system in the most deeply profound ways. And you know, that's where sometimes the mind can imagine, well, you have to be you know, follow this path, and it's not true. It's about intuition. It's about intuitive knowing and being nourished intuitively, lovingly, nourishing the body temple as if you are feeding the glory of God, blessing everything, blessing your body, blessing the foods, blessing the where it's come from, right? It's about living so that everything is resonating at the frequency of love. And then we are being nourished by love, right? It's not about ideas. We can eat things that we imagine are not good with the mind, but if there's love and blessing and in the preparation and all of that, and we're not holding a story of like, that's bad for me. If you put something inside your body that you think is bad for you, it's going to be bad for you. It's going to create that frequency. So it's don't ever think, oh, this is naughty, right? This is gonna, you know, I'm gonna indulge in something bad. Because as soon as you move with that thought, you're creating it. It's like if you want to eat like a big donut, let's say, right? Like your heart says donut, fresh donut, sugary, you can smell it, it's sweet. Heart saying donut. It's like you make that donut experience so holy, right? That you meet the donut and you wait until you know only God, that this is only God. And it's not a mental idea, it's that the frequency, that you dispel all of the frequencies that say, this is bad for me, you know, until really you're resonating with this donut. You can just feel the divine presence. And there's just blessing and light and holiness. You take a bite of the holy cosmic donut and you taste the sweetness of the glory of God in those crystals of sugar that are coating it, right? And you chew so slowly, and you bless the alchemy that has allowed flour and water and sugar to be turned somehow magnificently via the jumping into the fire of hot oil into this gooey, sweet, chewy, whatever deliciousness, right? You You bless it. You merge with it, right? And you love it. You admit, this is delicious. I love it. Yummy, right? You're not like guilty shame. I hope nobody sees me. Don't let anyone catch me, right? Stay in the parking lot. Put your cap down. Scoff your donut. No, make it holy. Make it holy, because then it is holy, right? It's all about the frequency. It's all about the frequency, right? It's the same with everything, right? If we imagine that it's wrong and it's bad, if we imagine that we are wrong and we are bad, then we are just perpetuating that frequency. So the human experience has the potentiality to be lived multidimensionally, really fully, profoundly multidimensionally. And it doesn't mean leaving your humanity, your humanness behind. It means imbuing your humanness with the remembrance of your divinity. It means living your humanity so fully engaged because you know the grace of it all, and that you are living in a way at a frequency that is able to bring the light to the surface, that whatever you are moving in and as dharmically in service on the surface of life, that you are bringing the light in that. Whatever your job, whatever you are pulled to, however the Dharma is moving through you, that you're not someone that's thinking that you're making a change, or you're caring, or you're giving as someone, that you're moving as a frequency of the one whole, that your offering is your frequency, that your offering is the frequency that you're living at. So whatever it is, whether you are serving, graced, guiding other beings, counseling, teaching, as some kind of therapist or practitioner that offers healing, whether you are working as a doctor, a lawyer, for the government, it doesn't actually matter. If you're working in a store, in the service industry, it doesn't matter. It's not about what you're doing. It's about the frequency. That's your offering. And if you are offering at the frequency of love, of the divine, then you will have an impact. You can only really have an impact when your offering is imbued with the holiness of your true depth, where you're living from depth, where you don't want anything for you, that it's all for God, it's all for the glory, it's all for the whole, that you don't want to be recognized, you don't need to be seen. And yet, let us just put a side note in and say, part of the process is that we're carried through all of these layers of catching where we want to be seen. Of course, this is part of the refinement. And when we are sharing and supporting others in different ways, we have this, we use this as a vehicle to find out, where do I want to be seen? Where am I attached? Where do I want my offering to be received in a certain way? Where are there still threads playing out? And it acts as the vehicle, as the means for us to refine, right? We're not supposed to be perfected before we step into whatever we're called to, right? anywhere and everywhere in the whole play of life, it's about the frequency that we are living at. It's the frequency that we're living at that is our offering, because ultimately it's never about what we're offering. It's always about how deeply are we willing to go in our own unfolding, so that we never imagine that we've reached a place where now I'm offering, that we recognize that any sense of offering is only the portal to deepen our own unfolding and to humble us more. It's never about anyone receiving what you're offering, anyone getting anything from it. It's not about outcomes. It's about how deep can this carry me? What can I see in this process? How can I embody and be humbled more? Only God, only the glory, only the mother. Or whether that's only the light, that there's never anyone that is God, that is the light, right? So yes, we are the light. We can say on a certain level, I am the light, I am the love, I am one with the glory. But no one can ever fully embody that. Where our knowing of that, the depth of our knowing of that is in the realms of the divine light. Can never express that. And that's where multidimensionally, it's all about how deep can we go? How far can we take this? What is actually possible? How far do we even want to go? Some beings reach a point where they feel like, okay, this is good enough. I'm not interested. And some beings, like this one, has a fire that won't go out, that just says, take me all the way, all the way, all the way. Right? And many of you have that. And it doesn't matter if you don't. And it doesn't matter if you do. There's no measure. And if you don't feel like you have that, maybe it will come online. Maybe it won't. It doesn't matter. We work where we are. We be where we are. And again, this comes right back to where we started, where this unfolding is yours. This unfolding is uniquely yours. And where it becomes truly magnificent is when you're not trying to live someone else's journey. You're not trying to be like anyone else. You're not trying to follow in anyone's footsteps, that you're letting, we could say we follow the footsteps so far. And in a way, it's like the footsteps into our own heart. There are no previous footsteps into our own heart. That's the point where we have to forge a path, where we have to walk alone. But multidimensionally, this is the glory, is that multidimensionally, we can be walking in the footsteps and walking and holding hands in companionship, while simultaneously in the dimension of the heart, we're the intrepid explorer, going in and into the divine. Because we're living all of this completely simultaneously. So it's very beautiful.